Welcome to the podcast. We're kicking off the 4th season of the podcast, a space designed to have raw, real, and authentic conversations around health and wellness, featuring none other than our incredible pure ambassadors of wellness.
Hi, I'm Taylor. I use he, they pronouns.
Hi, I'm Simran. I use she, they pronouns.
Hi, I'm Misha, and I go by she, her, hers.
I'm H, and I go by they, he.
Okay. How do you navigate dating and relationships in a way that both prioritizes emotional and physical health as an LGBTQ plus individual?
I think for me, I honestly wasn't, trying to get in a relationship. I was just friends with someone for a long time, and we both realized we liked each other. So I had the circumstance where I already knew him well enough that he was, a safe person. I didn't have to worry about, does this person actually think of me as, my gender? Because that's always a concern when you're dating, and you're, trans.
Mm-hmm.
But, honestly, it's a lot just dating where you're just trying to figure out if someone's safe and cool and fun to be with.
So, interestingly enough, I don't want to be in a relationship. So it makes it very easy, considering, I
feel the exact same way, honestly. I will say that my sexuality does play a role in, how I'm treated sometimes in relationships and how I navigate dating. But for the most part, it's just, everybody else. Are they cool? Are they fun to be with? Are they nice? What are their interests? Do they will we get along, basically, is what I'm looking for. But I can definitely understand that for other individuals that are within the, community, that it might be harder.
Mm-hmm.
I know personally, I wasn't really looking to get into a relationship when I did. It just kind of happened, but I know a lot of people do have, it is different. You kind of have to, there's always that little bit of fear in the back of your head of when I go and talk, or when I would go talk to someone, it would just kind of be oh, I hope that this is going to be okay, that they aren't going to take this the wrong way. I've had issues in the past of people thinking I was coming on to them for whatever reason. We were in a group project, they find out, and then suddenly it's just oh, I'm straight, don't get the wrong idea. And I was I wasn't interested in the first place, but it still happens, so.
That's true, because even though I don't want to, you'll have a lot of people come up to you and be just so you know, we're friends.
Yeah.
And you're great, that's what I want to be too.
That's what I thought we were. I didn't think there was anything else, but it happens.
Yeah.
So in addition to that, what are some potential health and wellness barriers that LGBTQ plus individuals may face?
I think just when you go to the doctor, a lot of times when they ask you if you're sexually active, they assume things about your partner, they assume things about you. When you're trans, depending on which way you pass as, they'll assume certain healthcare needs, certain anatomy, that sort of thing. And then a lot of it's just I've had issues in the past where, because I wasn't out to family and my family made the appointment, I didn't feel comfortable giving my chosen name when I went into the dentist or something like that, which is always just it's terrible.
Oh. I think that one of the biggest things is definitely if someone does not support it, you instantly kind of get narrowed down into how they treat you, first of all. So, and that comes up a lot in medical areas, because I feel sometimes I just don't say things to a doctor, especially if it's not my regular physician, because I'm you know what, it's not worth it.
Yeah, I've had similar issues, but not quite to that extent, because I didn't really discuss being part of the LGBTQ plus community until I moved out of my home, and then I got my own primary care provider that didn't report to my mom.
Yeah.
And then I got a lot more open with it, and it was more secure, because obviously there's different paths to safe sex depending on your sexuality.
Yeah.
And a lot of sex education sucks.
Oh,
but
yeah,
also they
yeah.
don't teach you for me what internal condoms are, or how to have a woman partner. and stuff like that. So I didn't really learn about that until I got my own primary care provider.
Yeah, no, when I, when I was doing sex ed in like high school and stuff, I think they literally just, here is a list of terms that are like, I forgot the word. What's the word for birth control? Here's like a list of birth control devices. We will not tell you what they do. Here's the percentage of how much they work.
Yeah.
And then I remember like specifically like, because we did like middle school and we did high school. In middle school, our teacher basically said, I don't believe in this, so I'm not going to teach you.
Nice.
And she also went on like a weird tangent about like, basically like assuming like anyone who's like ace doesn't exist. We're like, oh yeah, if you can't be alone with your opposite sex partner, because then you'll definitely want to do it. Everyone feels this way.
Yeah, there's lots of stigma around stuff like that. I remember in high school, my sex ed teacher, she literally told me that I could get pregnant from a public pool if a guy was in there and, That would make me so paranoid to go into public Yeah, because
pools.
I had to do it for PE, and I was like, dog, if I get pregnant, my mom's gonna kill me.
Yeah.
Public pool.
Yeah. I know I've had that time in the past where I'm sitting in a doctor's appointment. I'm a twin, so my brother's in there as well. And the two of us are sitting there, and then there's that awkward moment where the doctor asks us, and at the time, like, I hadn't told Tyler yet or anything. So I'm just kind of like, oh, no, there's, like, no special information you need to give me. And then, of course, Tyler does say it, so I get to hear all the, like, spiel about, oh, do this to make, like, if you're gay, you're going to be having relationships, make sure to stay safe and stuff. So I know at the time I didn't really want to say anything because I didn't want to out myself to him at the time. So it was just kind of an experience.
And unfortunately, I feel like this is both a good and a bad thing. A lot of that information comes, like, when you don't want to say anything to a doctor, comes from the internet, which is sometimes great because you actually have a community you can find, but sometimes it gives you very, very wrong information, and it can be more harmful.
I know I had some issues in high school and everything. When we had sex ed, they very much treated it like, oh, man, woman gets together, man gets woman pregnant, she gives birth, and then they all die of STDs. That's basically what they told us in high school. It was a very interesting experience. They didn't really cover anything, so like my whole group of friends and everything, we all kind of just had to, if we wanted to know anything, we had to go online and like look there. So I think that is a really big barrier that a lot of individuals face.
Yeah, especially because it depends on schools and how comfortable they might be actually sharing information during sex ed classes, health classes, about what they're teaching their students. Because you also do get parents who refuse to let schools teach their kids that.
Yeah.
What affirmations or mantras help you navigate challenges related to your identity and health? And then, I guess this is kind of related. How did they uplift and motivate you?
When we first got this question, like I don't really use affirmations, but I know a lot of people do get a lot of comfort from using them. So like I know friend, when they were moving into their apartment, they had a bunch of letter stickers and they just thought it was really fun. They went through, because the Barbie movie had just come out at the time, he literally wrote on his mirror, I'm Knuff.
Yep.
And I know he meant it as a joke and everything, but he does actually like look at that and it actually is kind of comforting to him. So while I don't find like affirmations really helpful for me, I understand how people would.
I love affirmations. But I don't necessarily think there's any like specifically geared toward my sexuality, I would say. I don't feel, now that I'm not at home anymore because my family is God-fearing, Bible Belt people, I don't feel like being in the LGBTQ plus community is like a bad thing, or that it makes less of me somehow. So I guess maybe if I was still in that position, I would tell myself that it's okay to have those feelings, but now I'm at a point where I'm just like, who cares?
I think I used to really do them a lot more when I felt like I was at my lowest, especially when I was like, am I worthy or am I not worthy? I am. I know that now. But it took a while to get to the point where I'm like, I don't need to rely on my affirmations anymore, but I should anytime I feel like I'm getting to a low point, I'm like, okay, no, it's fine. You can pick yourself up, raise yourself back up. But it's never really been, to be fair, it's never really been about like any specific part of my identity. It's just kind of like a coalescing whole of like who I feel I am at the moment. Yeah.
Do you have LGBTQ plus health role models? How do they help inspire you to prioritize your well-being? And what's a moment that representation made you feel empowered, both as an ally and an LGBTQ plus individual?
I don't think I have like a health role model, but like I think in terms of like, I try to surround myself with like queer people in general, and then just like figure out like, okay, this person's doing this, does that work for me, that sort of thing. But I can't think of like anyone in particular I would be like, yes, that's a health role model for me.
So this is gonna sound so bad. I don't actually look to anyone for health role models. I kind of just go with what feels good at the moment, in all honesty, because I'll hear like my friends and like people that I know talk about like what works for them. It doesn't always work for me. So instead of really like looking at someone, I kind of just, it's a little bit of trial and error, going back and forth with, does this work for me? Does this not? Yeah.
I would say I do have a role model who's in the community, and it would be like Haley Kiyoko. Love Haley Kiyoko. Lesbian Jesus. That's what her fans call her.
Oh, that's really funny. Yeah, I certainly have like people I watch like on YouTube or something like that, but like I don't think I idolize anyone in particular. It's just I like having queer voices to like listen to about like subjects.
I would say the same thing. I don't really have like a specific person I look up to that I'm like, oh, I like idolize them, I want to be like them. Mm-hmm. I don't really have that. I kind of just have like, I'll just kind of see individuals in the media and be like, wow, I'm so happy for them, and that's kind of it. But
yeah.
What about representation?
Currently, there's this like, for Aero Ace people, the representation is very, very low. Very low. But I ended up finding this one book, and it's not even like there's an actual like actor or actress, but even just reading characters who are Aero Ace or identify as such was so like, oh my god, they exist. We're not just an online community. But I don't know, a lot of it comes back to just like shows and movies. The more it's like I don't know if I can say this, so I'm not gonna say it, but actually having like a happy and just regular story. It doesn't have to be like full of traumatic events or full of like sad endings.
I feel like that's for whatever reason, that's like a really big trope in like gay novels a lot of time. It's just, everything ends in tragedy. And I don't like seeing that myself. Like, I know it's a thing that happens, but I don't know. I know personally, role model wise, I was talking about this earlier when I was trying to think of who would I name. I just really look back to watching Bones as a kid and seeing the character Angela Montenegro and seeing her go through, and she just kind of loved whoever she wanted, and I really I remember seeing that and be like, wow, I could get behind that. So I remember seeing that and being really feeling seen at the time. I know she's not the best example, but at the time seeing that, it just really made me I think I said already, it just made me feel seen. So I really liked that.
No, and it's true, because even in animation, there's the Owl House, and just seeing Liz she just likes guys and she likes girls, and it's not necessarily a huge conversation. It just is. It's not something that has to be explained or defined. It's this is my life, this is who I am. We're just gonna go with the flow, because not everyone has to define who they are.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of times shows will end up making the whole thing about them being gay, when that's just part of them. That I feel like sometimes I just really like seeing that's a character, they happen to be gay, and it makes me happy.
Exactly. I'll relate the same to a character who enjoys reading. I'll be like, oh my god, yes, that's me. It doesn't always have to be about an aspect of who I am. It can just be a person you relate to.
Yeah, I really hope the media starts doing that more. Just have them there because they can.
Exactly, because they are there. They are still in society. They are still living their lives, but...
I was listening to, I forget the name of the podcast, but it was like a podcast, it was like a, they describe it as comedy horror, but it's basically like, what if monsters just exist in real life, and they had a podcast of their own, but like one of the main characters is non-binary and uses they, them, and that first, was one of the things that made me realize, hey, maybe I want to go by different pronouns and that's okay. But, other than that, I really like Nimona.
Who?
Nimona is, it's a movie, but, its main character, the main character it's named after is a shapeshifter.
Interesting.
And
Okay.
also, the two main male leads are in a relationship, and then because of plot reasons, they break up and end up back together. And it's one of the few moments that I can think of, because before that I think of sitcoms where it's very they're not allowed to show too much affection, otherwise the straight people watching might feel uncomfortable. And this is one of the few times I've seen a lot of affection between two dudes that isn't scandalized. It's just seen as normal.
Yeah, I will say, when it comes to gay men in media, they're, super over-sexualized.
Yeah, it's...
I think, LGBTQ plus relationships in general are super over-sexualized.
Oh, yeah, and this isn't, sexualized because it's technically a kid's movie. So it's just, they're allowed to, hug and, cuddle. One of the first few scenes is, one of them stressed out and, he's laying his head on the other guy.
That's so
It's
important
so
to
sweet.
see, yeah. I think for representation, again, I'm kind of obsessed. Haley Kiyoko. When she was on Wizards of Waverly Place, she wasn't out yet, but she was an alternative, expression-wise, especially as because I think at that time she uses she, her pronouns. I think she might use she, they now. I'd have to double check. But for someone to be a woman and present themselves in a alternative way, that was so crazy, because that's how I felt all the time. And I didn't want to, dress like other girls, and I wanted to, alternative, as a woman was difficult, especially growing up in the early 2000s, where it's you need to be girly.
Yeah, no, I definitely felt that, and I just, at a certain point, I'm just I'm gonna wear t-shirts and jeans. That's my entire wardrobe, because that's the only thing I feel comfortable wearing as, a kid.
Yeah, I used to wear, cargo pants, and my mom would be so mad. She'd be you look like a little boy, and you stand like a little boy, and you walk like a little boy. And I'm I don't know what to tell you. But, yeah. Even nowadays, I'm still, sometimes you'll see me like this, other times you'll see me in, cargo pants and t-shirt.
Yeah, no, I've definitely gotten to, button-ups.
I love button-ups, too.
Button-ups are so much fun, and they're so easy to, thrift.
They are easy to thrift.
That's a little off topic, but...
No. Button-ups are a part of LGBTQ plus culture, my bad. You can't have a gay without a button-up.
Fair. It's across genders, too.
Have you utilized some of the resources, or have you encouraged others to utilize the resources and services offered on campus that support LGBTQ plus people? Do you feel that there are any difficulties still in receiving gender-affirming care?
Again, I don't think it hinges on sexuality, but I've used Kiss Kits, and I never really needed a gender-affirming care because I identify with the gender I was assigned at birth.
Yeah. No, they've helped me access endocrinology, and then for me, my insurance was giving me issues, so being able to use the pharmacy for that basically meant that I didn't have to pay ridiculous amounts for it.
That's interesting, yeah, because you're coming from a completely different perspective as someone who is kind of not identifying as their...
Yeah.
I can't remember the exact word. I know there's an exact word for it.
Not identifying as their assigned gender at birth, is that what you mean?
Yes. What's the word for that?
Trans? Are you thinking?
Dog! Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, no, as like a trans person, being able to just come here for like endocrinology is very useful because I live nearby, so it's like I don't have to go all the way. Like one of the other main options in Fresno is Planned Parenthood over on Fulton. Is it on Fulton?
Yes.
I'm bad at directions. But like that would be a longer trip for me to get all the way over there.
Yeah. That's
Whereas I
interesting.
can walk here.
Yeah, it is very convenient. It's also nice that we have that on campus.
Yeah.
Because, like, to be honest, we're in the Central Valley. So, like, LGBTQ plus acceptance is not widely a thing in the Central Valley.
So I definitely think there are still, like, issues. I know I spoke to a lot of people recently who have been having issues getting that care that they really need. And I always just want to be supportive. I want to be there. I know I've directed people to look at the health center and everything. I've directed people. I think a really big service that we have on campus is the KISS program. So I know I've directed people to go and get those products, get them because they are here for our use. So.
Exactly. Like you literally pay for them with your tuition,
Yeah.
so visit. But yeah, I think the same. I've directed people because it's like, I feel like sometimes it's very underutilized and there can be improvements. I think that's true for everything. There can always be room for progress and betterment, but it's getting there slowly.
I hope it
improves. Yeah.
Like medically, I think one of my friends who are like going into like the medical field described us as being in a medical desert. So there's a lot like less options in terms of like medicine in general.
I will say though, Fresno has a pretty like decent LGBTQ plus population. So we do have a lot more representation here.
Yeah, especially with like the Tower District and
Yeah.
like some of the history around that, like the Tower Theater. We have like a lot of queer people from like around the Central Valley just coming here.
Hell yeah.
And then, do you feel there are still difficulties in receiving gender-affirming care?
Oh, of course.
Yeah, like I was just talking about, my insurance basically said, no,
Yeah.
we're not covering this. And I probably could have fought them on it, but like, it was easier just to go through the pharmacy here than like try to fight my insurance on covering something.
Yeah. Do they still, I think in some states they still view it as like elective surgeries.
Yeah, so
the insurance won't cover it.
In California, trans healthcare is supposed to be covered. But depending on like what forms of things you're like, for me it was like accessing hormones. Like if you're getting a certain type of hormone, they might be like, well, that's more expensive, so we don't want to cover it. We're gonna fight you on it.
Oh.
So like that's like, for example, why more people take like shots for testosterone than like gel, because they don't like to cover gel.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really important to bring more like awareness to things like that, especially on campus, because we have a lot of resources for LGBTQ plus individuals, and we should definitely raise our voices about certain things.
Yeah.
What are ways to find a support system as an LGBTQ plus person? How were you able to find that support, or who would you suggest looking to for support?
Yeah, no, for me, like, when I first came to Fresno State, I had, like, transferred from Fresno City, and, like, most of my friends from high school, like, moved away, so I didn't, like, have a lot of friends at the time. So I happened into, like, I joined a board game club, and then a lot of people there I made friends with, and a lot of us ended up being like in the community. So like I wasn't trying to find a support system, I just kind of happened into it. But like there's on campus we have United Student Pride, which is a club, but there's like a lot of other like really friendly clubs, like the club I'm in, it's the Bulldog Board Game Club. I know there's like other ones that I'm not involved in. But
we have the CCGC, which we are currently in right now.
Yeah, we have the CCGC building. This is the Pride Room.
Yeah.
What else? And then like I also looked into the fact that because I'm a creative writing major, there's a lot of like queer supporting people in my major, and also just like a lot of fellow LGBTQ plus people in my major. So yeah, I met a lot of people that way as well.
So I know my entire support system, it kind of just like came to me basically. I just got really lucky with the like groups of people that I have around me, and like the friends I've made. I know I would suggest if you don't have that support, there are a bunch of people in organizations on campus that are here for you. I know one thing I would really recommend is check out USP or United States. Yeah, I keep wanting to say the United States Postal Service, but no, it's
UPS.
UPS. Check out USP, United Student Pride. They're a bunch of great individuals, love them. But there are also other organizations on campus that you wouldn't really like think, but like there are great people everywhere. I know, like just getting my club out there. The board game club is a really welcoming place on campus. There are a bunch of organizations on campus that are just full of really great people that I really recommend going, and just if you're looking for that support, you can find it there. And then you can also check out the programs like through the health center, like the Let's Talk. If you really do need some like support at that very moment, they're there for you to reach out to.
Yeah, I think a lot of my support came from like getting to know one person, and then they kind of just opened the floodgates to getting to know a lot of people that eventually become a support system. And a lot of it is just being genuine, talking to people, making that connection, which can be very difficult because there is fear, there is nervousness, but like you, at some point, I feel like you have to take a risk, and it pays off. Like I just last year met in real life another Aero A's person, and I was like, oh my god, hi.
You kind of really need to like at times just take that leap of faith. I know when I first transferred to Fresno State, I had just kind of basically had like gone through a friend group breakup basically. So I was really, there wasn't like really that many people I knew, but I just kind of decided, you know what, random club I saw a flyer for it, I'm gonna go to it, and it led me to, and now I'm the treasurer for the club. So I think it's about taking that leap of faith, that you don't know how it's gonna work out, but you'll never know if you don't try.
And also just getting involved. Like you meet so many different people, like I met you.
Yeah.
Exactly, and it's like, that's just kind of how you start to form it.
Make sure you're following us on Instagram at FS Health Center, where we're going to share more opportunities to take that deeper dive into wellness and to have some fun at the same time. You can also visit our website at fresnostate.edu/health to learn more about the programs and services available at the Student Health and Counseling Center.